Wow. What an intro. My name is Dan. Apparently, I am a skinny white guy. So, Victor called me up a couple months ago and he said, Dan, we want you to come on and talk about branding. And I was like, wow, that's like such a tremendous opportunity. I said, look, Vic, I just got one request is like, listen, I just can't go on and follow Grant Cardone. And look where I am following Grant Cardone. I don't think anybody can follow Grant Cardone. But man, what an event. I mean, the party last night was just crazy, man. Nick, I mean, you, Jody, the team, I mean, give it up for these guys. So, you know, I don't know if anyone knows the story of how I met Victor, but it was a couple of years ago. It was actually here in Vegas, and I was speaking at the Service Roundtable event that they have out here every year, and talked with a bunch of guys, and I didn't know about Victor, and he came up to me and, you know, he asked me, he said, you know, Dan, you know, what do you think of my logo, my truck wrap? Now he says that I said, dude, it's fucking awful. But I don't know that that's really true. I will say that I did speak to a bunch of KickCharge clients recently, and I was conveying them that story, and they said, Dan, you said the same fucking thing to me. So maybe I really did say that. And Victor, you know, I think he was a little upset. You know, Victor's, you know, he reminded me of like Leo DiCaprio in the Titanic when he's at the front of the ship. He's like, I'm the king of the fucking world. And he's all proud of his logo. And here I am, like, crushing his dreams. And he thought about it a little bit, and then he reached out, and we wound up rebranding him. And I think the story of him choosing to rebrand is really important because he was on a rocket ship already at that point. And he could have just said, what I'm doing is good enough. But you guys know Victor, and it's one thing I think we can all say about Victor, is that he is not complacent. This dude can't sit still, right? I mean, I don't know what the hell he's taking, but it's crazy stuff. And he's just on fire. And he said, this isn't going to get me to where I want to go. So let's make a change. And that was a big move for him because at that point he already had like 15 or 20 trucks. So making that decision just speaks to the idea of complacency, right? It speaks to the idea of, what are you doing today? Is that good enough for tomorrow? And you guys know what happened after we rebranded Victor and how much he's grown, how much it's become a part of his culture, that new brand. And, you know, it's just an amazing thing. And I look at that stuff and I say, this is a great example of my why. This is why we do what we do at KickCharge, is we change lives. We change lives with design. And yesterday was just such an emotional moment for me when Amanda got up to speak. And she got to introduce Grant Cardone. And Amanda came to me a year ago and talked to me about rebranding her company. And that responsibility that we take on is so huge and so important. And having her up on stage, seeing the growth, I mean, she is just an amazing rock star that I'm just so proud of, Amanda. I mean, just amazing stuff that you're doing. Stories like that is my why. And we talk about finding your why and figuring out why you do what you do. But just seeing people like that, seeing how they grow. You know, Jason Bueller at an event 3 weeks ago was on stage talking about how the work we did for him changed his company, changed his life. And he literally said, Dan Antonelli changed my life. And at that moment, as an owner, and as someone that puts his heart into everything that he does, you can't ask to hear something better than to know that the work that we've done has changed the lives of people. Okay, so we're going to talk a lot about brands today. We're going to talk about how you can use brands to your advantage. Some of you may have an awful fucking logo. Maybe you don't. But I want you to consider the fact that what you have today and where it took you to today, is that good enough to take you where you want to go tomorrow? And just consider that. And then if you are really unsure and you want my opinion on it, That's fine. Shoot me an email. You can put in the subject line, do I have an awful fucking logo? And I will let you know. I'm not afraid to tell you if you have an awful logo, as many seem to have told me. So let's get through this. There's a ton of content. I'm going to try to go through it and be fast, because I know we're running a little short on time already. I know everyone's hungover, so that's cool. So about me, I'm the creative director of KickCharge. We have 21 employees now. We've done about 1,500 home service brands in the last 27 years. Between my team, we have about 100 years of brand experience. I wrote a few books, author of 3 logo design books, and what's really cool is actually on the flight here, I actually wrote the outline for my next book on branding, which is actually just going to be specific for home service. So I was really happy that I was finally able to put that plan into action. Now, our idea of why I started this agency is we believe, again, that you should design like lives are at stake. Okay? And that's really what the whole team is focused on, the idea that our work matters, that the work that we do for our clients is important. And that's really the philosophy that we all basically live by. There's me, rocking a mullet. I mean, look, I look pretty cool, don't I? I mean, I'm 17 years old at this point, and I'm finding out that this is what I love. And how blessed am I to be able to know at such a young age what I was destined to do. Okay, so that's me lettering a plumbing and heating company, Staten Island, New York, 17 years old, and in Staten Island? Yeah. Yeah! So, I love this, okay? I learned so much about branding. I learned so much about how legibility plays a role in truck wraps, and that experience was great. But when I was 17, still in high school, I said, Mom and Dad, I want to be a sign painter. You can't be a sign painter, you gotta go to college. And so they kind of pushed me to go to college, and I went, and it was good because I studied advertising. Okay, so I learned a lot about the marketing of brands. And I had done the physical part, I had understood composition, I had understood layout, but then I learned more about psychology. And that's really what I spent the last 27 years working on, is the psychology of branding and how it gets consumers to think things about your business. Okay? So that experience was just great. I started the company when I was 27 years old, and been doing it since. Started out of my house, working in my basement, like a lot of you guys start small like that. Had employees come into my house, and then got an office, and then we built a new space. So actually, this is the building is a building that I built 4 years ago when I rebranded myself. And I say that too because people may think it's easy for you to tell everyone that they should rebrand or that they should rename the name of the company. Well, I did it after 22 years, and it was hard. And I realized that my old name didn't represent who we were and where we were going. So I had to make that decision too. So I empathize with how challenging it is to take that blanket off, basically, because that old logo is like a warm blanket. You know, it got you to where you are. And I understand that. And going through that experience for me was great. So this quote here, overspending on advertising is the tax businesses spend for being unremarkable. And I love this quote. The thing I hate about this quote is that I didn't fucking think of it myself first. But it is so true. And this is everything we're going to talk about, is the idea of these brands that just fit in. And because they fit in, you need to spend so much more money marketing it. So when I hear guys talking about, oh dude, you got to spend 10% of revenue to really grow if you really want to grow. And then I go look at what their brands look like, and I say, well, I know why you got to spend 10% to grow or 11% to grow. I'm probably one of the few marketing agencies that wants its clients to spend the least amount of money possible. You know, when I look at examples like Jason Buell and his company, growing from 2.5 million to 7 million in revenue in 30 months while spending 3% of revenue on advertising. Well, how the hell did he do that? Well, he became remarkable in his market. People understood what his company did. They remembered it. It was sticky. And the idea of being sticky is the other piece. So a lot of us have trucks. A lot of us have brands that fit in. So we're going to talk a lot about the idea of disruption. A lot about how we want to be different than what everybody else is doing. That's how you win on the streets. So a couple key points. The biggest thing that we just talked about is investing in the idea of disruption will make all your other marketing channels work better, which means you'll need to spend less to get people to know who you are. It's easier to close high-ticket sales. You couple a great brand with great sales training, whether it's a J-Dub or Joe Casara, people like that, and it's like lights out. Because now you've got this amazing brand and you've got this amazing sales effort that matches up. So people almost expect to pay more for your service because the branding is already telling them that you are a premium provider of a service. You're already showing them value before you even ring that doorbell. The idea of your competition doesn't understand branding. When we do a new brand for a company, we examine all the competition. We look at what's out there. I want to know every single truck wrap that is in your market and what they look like. And that's part of our process, so I can make sure that the creative that we're going to suggest for you is different. I don't want to build a brand that looks like something else in your market. So the idea of knowing that, but again, most competitors are very complacent. They are living with this warm blanket of this brand, and they say, that's the reason why I shouldn't change, because I have success with what I've done, and I'm just going to stick with it. Well, that's great. You keep sticking with it, and my people are going to come in and start taking pieces of your world while you sit there and you're so complacent and you think that everything that you have is great. Cool. I'm going to come in there, I'm going to disrupt that market. I'm going to take pieces of your sales because you're sitting there and you're not changing. You're not adjusting with the times. So again, most companies deliver a great service. Like everyone here, I'm sure after you ring that doorbell, you guys kill it inside. Whether it's on the sales game, whether the technicians are awesome. Okay? I want to control what that consumer thinks before you ring that doorbell. I want them to feel something about your company. I want them to think something about your company. People forget that that's really what brands are supposed to do, right? I want to help them understand the whys. I want to help them understand the value that you can provide. Again, making customers your brand ambassadors. It's like people talk about Bueller all the time. Like they're proud to say that they went to Bueller. They're excited to tell their neighbors. So we make them brand ambassadors. Obviously, your vehicle is such a critical component, right? Making sure the vehicle functions well in the outdoor space. It means I can read it. I know what company is being represented is unique. The color schemes I can own, things like that. And the idea of why the vehicles are the most critical aspect of your brand goes to the idea of top of mind and how it works in the rest of your marketing, especially as it relates to online. Okay? Wouldn't you rather people just type in your branded name when they need service rather than typing in air conditioning repair Las Vegas and you hoping that you show up high on the list? Wouldn't it be better if they just typed in your name? Because then it don't matter when you show up for some of these search terms. It won't matter nearly as much. So some of the things that we see after we launch a very disruptive brand is that the branded search traffic goes crazy. It really increases. Okay? So those are things that you don't think about as far as how it affects the rest of your marketing. Again, a lot of people say, well, people say they see my trucks all the time. Great. That's step one. Step two is what do your trucks say about your company? And that's where most guys miss the mark. Right? You can make your trucks pink and purple. And everyone will say they see your trucks. But what does it say about your trucks? Say about your company, I should say. What does it say about what that customer is hoping or expecting to see or be delivered from you? Okay? The longer, and again, recruitment, another thing, right? Everyone's, oh, we can't find good people to work for us. Recruitment is so hard. A lot of times recruitment is more challenging because you just don't look like a place that I want to work for. So that's another big piece of why the brand is so important. And of course, the longer you wait, the more expensive it is to get done. Like when we finished up with Victor, within, he's crazy like this because he goes 100 miles an hour, right? But within days, he rewrapped 15 trucks. So if he had done it right the first time, we wouldn't have had that expense of redoing everything. So if you can invest in it as early on as possible, it actually becomes a lot more cost effective. So brand basic, branding is this big word people throw around. So how do you explain it? So the best way I've been able to kind of explain is the idea that branding is like a wheel, okay? And in the center of that wheel is your logo. And around that wheel are all these different channels that integrate your messaging. So your outdoor, your social, your stationery, web design, all those different things make up that brand, okay? If your hub, which is your logo, is jacked up, then that wheel can't turn, okay? It's not going to deliver the ROI across the other channels because you're working to overcome something that isn't solid in its foundation, okay? So, good visual here. There's the broken wheel. The bike's not moving, right? Your marketing's not moving. And she's like, what the fuck? Why isn't this working? Why are we going forward here? Right? So it's, again, it's your company ad spend is not going as far as it could because you're working so hard to overcome the fact that you have a poor brand. This is a company that we rebranded about 10 years ago. They actually recently just sold 10x multiple, if anyone's interested in that, because we're talking about 10x, so that was kind of interesting. But that was their original brand. And you can see the difference, that white van that just blended in. Okay, if anyone here has a white van, I'd highly recommend you not have a white van. Okay, will blend in with everything that you see, and that's why. So, and then this is just showing integration. So you see the vehicle, you see the stationery, you see the website, see billboards, see this billboard that was just recently ripped off. Also, if anyone follows me online, you saw that little saga. So you can see how that hub was solid, and then we built the platform to deliver all these other messages. So again, what is branding? Well, a brand is what people feel about your company. It's what they say about your company. If they're talking to their friends, how would they describe that experience? And the brand is certainly formed in people's minds from all these different experiences. So when a technician rings the doorbell, when they're performing service, when they see your Facebook ads, all those things factor into how they perceive your company and the experience that they might get if they chose to hire you. So again, a good brand is sticky, counters negative attitudes. We talk a lot about negative attitudes because homeowners in general are biased against contractors. They're afraid of who is coming to their home. So we want to make sure that we help address their concerns, their fears. We want to make sure that what we put out makes them feel at ease with who's coming to their house, right? So you want to make sure you're thinking about those things. So good brands, disruptive, they don't fit in. They stand out for the right reasons. Not being pink and purple just for the sake of being pink and purple, but for the sake of being unique and disruptive in your market. They deliver a positive brand promise. So the idea of brand promise, again, is the idea of controlling what someone feels about your company before you ring the doorbell. Right? It's very simple like that. Easy to read topography, so I can read the name of your company. See a lot of these truck routes where they're just a complete disaster. I can't read anything on the truck. It's like cool because it's got flames and shit, but I don't know who the company is being represented by. So think about things like that. Tell a story quickly and efficient. Instill themes like confidence, security, longevity. If you're talking about the warranty that you're going to provide for them after you deliver the service, wouldn't it be cool if you look like you're going to be in business next year to honor that warranty? And it sounds like so painfully obvious. Well, of course that would be cool. But you got to be thinking about what are they thinking about? What are their objections to signing your proposal? Well, one of the objections is, will you be around to fix this if something goes wrong with it next year, right? So, and again, naming is so critical and so important. So many companies work so hard to overcome a poor name. And again, when you started the company, you weren't thinking about things like that. You're like, I'm going to make my company my last name. Or I'm going to make it my initials, TJS Mechanical. Well, guess what? Nobody knows what the hell TJS Mechanical does. No one's going to remember that. There's no brand image to associate with TJS Mechanical. And if you try to, you're going to spend so much more money trying to get people to associate TGS with heating and air conditioning. So the naming is so important. So again, this is a before. Who looks more professional? This is a $100 million company, Rhode Island. That was their van. This is the new van. Which one do you think you would remember? Right? All the classic problems you see with truck wraps. Way too much crap on it. Right? Got 3 phone numbers. Like 3 phone numbers? One wasn't enough? We need 3. Residential and commercial service. Cool. So you service everyone. Okay. So why do I need to say that? Like, where's that clarifying? 24-hour service. Scheduled appointments. Right? Dude, if you're not scheduling appointments with people, like, you got bigger problems than a brand. Right? So this new truck, 16 times the amount of revenue attributed to just the trucks by themselves after rebranding. So you want to talk about how expensive branding is? Well, how expensive is not branding and standing out, or fitting in, I should say, right? So how do brands counter consumer bias? Like we talked about, a good brand puts customers at ease. Don't you think your sales process would be so much easier if people already believed that you were the best in your market, that you provided a tremendous value? Think about how easy it would be to close sales, or how much easier it would be to close sales. So to me, it's like you couple this great brand with some of the sales strategies that J-Dub offers, or Joe Sarah, and it's like putting gasoline on a fire, because it just makes things blow up. And it makes the sales process so much easier. It makes people feel confident in their choices, right? And it matches how good the service that you actually provide, right? Like I said, you guys probably kill it after you ring the doorbell. But do you look like you kill it? Right? That's what we want them to think. That's what we want them to feel about you, right? And taking control of that conversation. Most businesses have a neutral or a negative brand promise, which neutral means I don't think anything at all about what I might get from you. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be bad, right? Wouldn't it be better if we led in with something that made them feel something before we even got there? So that's the whole point of what we're talking about. So take control of the conversation with this brand. Have them feel that you're the best before you even get there. So Hanson, another company that we branded, is cool. The truck's on fire and it's frozen, right? We've all seen stuff like that. If you've got flames and fire and ice on your truck, maybe time to think about maybe a different kind of strategy, right? Because it's very common, it's very overused, it's very difficult to own. And then this is the new brand. $50 million. They had 4 bands when they came to us. Okay? Do you want to talk about how much brand matters? I mean, listen, it's not all because we did a great brand for him. He had to have all the other things working, of course. Okay? It's not all about the brand, but it certainly helps an awful lot. Tommy's company, right? Tommy's another guy. Doesn't sit still, of course, right? And certainly is not complacent. So when Tommy came to me, he said, Dan, I want you to rebrand us. No, actually, he didn't say that. He said, Dan, I want you to do a new truck wrap design for me. Right? Tommy's laughing. And I said, dude, your logo's fucking awful. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I got it on everything. Everybody knows my fucking brands and my van. I'm like, dude, we gotta fix it, right? We can leverage some of what you had, but let's fix it. Let's create a palette that's ownable, right? And let's, of course, feature you on it, because you're a personality. People know your face already. Let's leverage that. But the cool thing about Tommy, he's into this, I don't know, 18 months or so, maybe a little bit more. And 40 million to projecting 70 million. Okay? So, is it because he's got a cool truck wrap and a logo? No. It's a piece of it. Is it helping? Yeah, absolutely it's helping. Is it helping his recruitment? Is it helping people remember this brand? When he puts out site signs, his new website, all those things are working in harmony. You know, again, just another example of something. Fox & Sons kind of looks like a technology company, but they're a heating and air conditioning company. We just simplified it. We made it look easy Easy to read, easy to understand. Another one, more flames, more snowflakes. Okay? Can't even read the name of the company. No brand promise inherent in here. No tagline, nothing to make me feel warm. Nothing to make me feel like this is a great company. You know, like, and now a much softer approach. An approach that appeals to women, which is probably the most important demographic that you think about. You know, guys get really caught up in the idea of that they themselves need to love their own logos. And I always try to rephrase that question and say, it's more important for your logo to appeal to who you sell to than it is to you. Because those are the people making the purchasing decisions. And most of the times, those are women. Okay? So does the logo actually appeal to the audience is really important. So cool, cozy, and comfy. Already I'm inferring something. I'm getting a sense of the deliverable from them. So when is the time to rebrand? Like, besides me telling you your logo's fucking awful, right? When is really the time to rebrand? When your brand really no longer represents who you are. And I get it. It's taking you to where you are today. And it might take you where you want to go. But a lot of times it's like dragging an anchor. It's just going to take you a lot longer. And you're going to have to spend a lot more money to do it. And I'd rather you spend the least amount of money possible. Okay? The longer you wait to do it, the more expensive it becomes. Not only in the fact that you have to redo a lot of stuff, but the missed opportunities is where it's expensive. The missed revenue, the missed phone calls. All those things are things that cost you more money the longer you sit with it. And I get it. It took you to where you are today. You're proud of it. Maybe you designed it. Maybe your wife designed it. Or your nephew. I always say your nephew designed it, right? Your nephew is really good at Photoshop. He designed my logo. Okay? That's cool. So it no longer represents who you are today. So you got to ask yourself that honest question. Is it who I am today? Or is it who I was when I started the company and when I just launched and when I didn't have the right budget to actually invest in branding? And my favorite quote here, success in spite of a poor brand is not a valid reason to perpetuate it. And if you think about that, that's often the argument that we hear is, well, look at where I am today. And I got here because of this logo. And I always try to reframe it. I say, you got here in spite of this logo, not because of it. Right? Imagine if you had better tools. Imagine if you had a better brand where you might have been. So let's fix it now so you've got better tools to get to where you want to go. Okay? And again, a lot of times it is ego. Right? Ego is not your ego. It's sometimes the biggest obstacle we run into is that owners can't see past it. And they think that again, everything that they've attained is the reason why to keep it. And their employees are not going to be the ones to tell them, hey, I'm a fucking awful logo, right? Their wife's not going to tell them. Their husband's not going to tell them. As a matter of fact, those are the very people that typically tell our clients, you should never rebrand. Because everybody knows you like this. Why would you ever change? Right? If that sounds familiar, it's a lot of people who don't really know actually about branding. So think about that and think about, well, is it really me that's holding the company back or not? So, like I said, everyone tells me they see my vans all over. Cool story, bro. Right? They see my vans all over. That means I'm winning. That means that our brand's awesome. Well, no. Because again, is it only seeing the brand, but is it telling the story of who you are as a company? And that's where a lot of times it's not happening. Right? Being seen isn't enough. It's only half of what is important. Don't mistake visibility with delivering brand promise like we talked about, right? It's more than just being seen, it's what's being said. It's what is that conversation about your company that's being had. And again, the vehicle is really the most critical touch point of your logo. Hands down. So when people come to us, a lot of people come to us, Dan, here's our logo. We love your truck wraps. We want to do a truck wrap with this logo. And I look at it, and I know it can't function for the environment. So I tell them that, and I say, listen, I'd love to help, but I can't in good faith take money for something that I know will not work. You're going to be disappointed at the end. You're going to be frustrated. It doesn't look like the rest of our graphs that you love. And I'm honest with them about it. All right? That's sometimes the question I ask myself when I think about marketing companies that do take money from people with poor brands. I guess somebody's going to take the money. But when they wonder why the campaigns don't work, why don't they say, let's look at the foundation. Let's look at the foundation of our marketing strategy and determine if there's a flaw there that is preventing the success of our company. So again, delivering disruption while simultaneously delivering brand promise. Very few really get to that point. They can build a disruptive truck wrap, maybe, but does it deliver brand promise at the same time? And most don't. And here's an example of one, right? You can look at this and you can say, this isn't an awful truck wrap. It's not like the Fire and Ice one. It's not on fire. It's not frozen, right? So it's doing better there already. It's legible to a certain extent. But they had 0 phone calls. And it's not bullshit. Like, I thought it was bullshit. And I was like, dude, really? 0 phone calls? And he's like, yeah, we got the data from Service Titan. We got no revenue attributed to this phone number. And then we did this for him. Right? So many people told him that this was a huge mistake. They said, dude, your truck's going to look like a taco truck. Why would you ever do that? Right? But here we're invisible. Why would I remember this? Cold Pepper Services. What the hell does Cold Pepper Services do? I've got to look underneath to try to even figure that out, right? That little C with the generic clip art of the 4 trades. Nothing unique, nothing memorable about it. And then 80 phone calls in the first 9 months of launching. Okay? That's how I know this stuff works. It's not theory. So knowing the difference between landing and branding. Again, a truck that looks like it's, in theory, there's nothing wrong with this. It's somewhat functional. Is it memorable though? Do I get a warm fuzzy from it? Or would I remember something like this more? Does this feel like a warm company? A trustworthy company? Does it feel like something that once I saw one van, I would think that I had seen hundreds of these vans before? This is another company, right? It doesn't look bad, right? Seatown Electric, I can read that, right? I get it, they're in Seattle, it makes sense, right? It looks like, kind of like a big utility company, right? It doesn't look like a residential contractor. $20 million in 30 months. Stupid. It's crazy numbers, right? But how many of us have something like this? I'm like, that's good. That's cool. That works, right? But the numbers are nuts with stuff like this, right? A palette that we can own. No one in this space has these colors. Every time you see this van coming towards you, you know it's a Seatown van. That's the whole point. That's trying to figure out disruption. We call it another one that we did in Minnesota. You know, the 3 brothers with the photo, with the pictures there, and you know, the clip art of the snowflake and the sun and everything like that, right? But this is the oldest plumbing company east of the Mississippi, or west of the Mississippi, I should say. Why aren't we talking about that as our story? Why would we ignore the fact that we're the oldest company in our market and put out a truck wrap like this and a brand like this that looks like it was just born yesterday? Or we can do something like this instead. And who's got an orange and brown plumbing truck? Nobody. And that's why we picked those colors. Because we knew no one in the market had those colors. That's why we did that sketch. That's why we wanted it to look like that. And that's why we wrote the tagline, Minnesota's original, since 1883. That's powerful. No one else can make that claim. So we heard Travis talk yesterday about the idea of your story and integrating your story into your brand. That's one way that we were able to say, this is what makes McQuillan unique. And let's leverage that. And here's Victor's. Right? I mean, honestly, right? It's awful, right? I mean, yeah. HVAC man? Like, is that the name of the company? HVAC man? You know, and he's got the same typical problem, you know, service and repairs. Well, of course it's service and repairs. Like, well, what else does an HVAC company do? Attic installation, and he's giving out free estimates. You guys know free estimates, that sells, right? Homeowners love free estimates. Like, really? Doesn't everybody get free estimates? Kind of. So with this, I said to Victor, let's leverage the eagle. That's the only piece of this that I thought had value. And if he hadn't painted his whole building blue, I would have told him to change his colors. Because I hate branding HVAC red, white, blue. Because it's very difficult to own. There's typically 4 other competitors in that market that are red, white, and blue. It's very difficult to own. And here's the new brand. Right? So, which one feels like a better company? Which one feels like I'm going to pay a premium for this service, and I'm going to get an excellent deliverable from them? Super clean, super iconic. As soon as I see that eagle coming, I know that that's an absolute airband. And absolute airflow band. And that's, again, the idea of being disruptive. And even this, using the red and blue, although it typically wouldn't be my first choice, I think we did it in a way that was unique, that was ownable, it didn't feel like what everybody else was doing. Again, we talk about, well, is branding really expensive? Well, how much is not branding? Right? Hanson, we just said, $54 million or so they sold for. 2013, they had 1.5 million in sales, and 50 million after 7 years. Again, was it because of a beautiful truck wrap design and the logo? Nope. It was part of it. It's a big part of it. It's sticky in everyone's minds where it is located. Okay? Still got to run a great company. You still got to deliver on what that brand promises to that customer. Okay? It's only one piece of it. You got to deliver on the other aspect of it too. When you had 5 trucks in 2013 and 140 today. Okay? Story of Jason Bueller. Jason, say hi to everybody. So Jason came to us, and his previous company name was called Air Source America, which is awesome if you're selling oxygen, but maybe not so good if you're selling HVAC. And his last name is Bueller, right? So like, this doesn't make any sense, dude. I don't know how you missed the boat on naming your company Air Source America when you had kind of Bueller in your back pocket. And I normally am not a last name-based fan of brands. But again, went from being virtually invisible with that white van to basically can't walk into a store without saying, oh, you're the guys from Bueller. We see your vans all over. And the funny story about this truck wrap, when we did this truck wrap, is I don't want to say Jason was a little neurotic, but he kind of was during the process. And I got to know him pretty well, and he called me up the morning that these trucks were being wrapped. Right? We go through the whole process. We got all the artwork done. It's at the wrap company. He calls me up. He's like, Dan, the head's too big. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like the head on the side of the van. It's like too big. I'm like, Jason, we are not changing the size of that fucking head. And he's like, I don't know. Like, my friend said it's really big. I'm a little scared. I'm like, trust me, that is what everyone is going to remember you by. And I want to say so the rest is history. But again, 2.4 to 7 million, 30 months, less than 4% of revenue. He said this year was 3%. And his biggest problem is just not being able to get enough bodies to deal with it. And the amount of people he's signing up, everything. It's just completely firing on all cylinders. And Jason, you know how much I love you, and I'm so grateful to have had the chance to help change your life with this brand. So thank you for that, buddy. So Ghetto, another company that we rebranded at 7 million. Okay, and I think they're up to 175, 180. I mean, at that point, I just kind of lose track, right? But you can look at where they were when he acquired Ghetto and say, that's good enough. That's going to take me to where we want to go. That's a story that I can tell. There was no story to tell. There was nothing about Ghetto Good Guys that he could leverage in a story that would connect with the people he was trying to sell to. So again, did he go from 7 to 175 because we built a great truck wrap and a great brand for him? No. You know how well Ken executes operationally, but now he had a brand to match how well the service was. There's a couple other examples of guys that we rebranded. All City $24 million in plumbing alone up in Rancho, Comfort Colorado. These are just a few examples of guys that we've worked with and the revenue increases that they've experienced since rebranding. Matt Biddy, I think, is here. I don't know if he's here today or yeah, cool. So colors, huge, really important part of why you can be disruptive. How do you pick your colors? What colors are going to work in your market? The way that we do it is we look at all your competitors. That's the first step that we take, right? We literally have the screenshots of all the brands in your market and what their vehicles look like. I want to make sure that the truck that we put out on the road in your market is never going to be confused with someone else, right? Avoid the most common colors if you can, if it makes sense, like red and blue. It's not very original when it comes to heating and air conditioning contractors. Most use red and blue. It's like, oh yeah, because red is heating and blue is cooling. Excellent. So try to think about it in a way that feels disruptive, that feels different, that feels unexpected. Okay? Consider colors that aren't put together typically. So this isn't red and blue, but this is red and teal, or dark red and teal. So it's off the Americana spectrum, right? You got the other problem with heating and air conditioning companies, it's also the colors of our American flag. So people's ideas of what that color scheme is associated with is not necessarily about us, it's about something else. So I want to try to make them think that every time they see those colors, they only think about us. I don't want to be confused with the American flag, I don't want to be confused with 5 other HVAC contractors that are using red and blue. It's another one, teal, dark blue, and kind of like a salmon color or a red color. How we put that together. Century Air, again, very different color palettes here that you can see. Foxfire, ivory, purple, and orange. Who says ivory, purple, and orange would be an amazing brand color scheme? Like if I told you that and they kick off with us, that we're going to make you ivory, purple, and orange, you say that really doesn't sound like that's going to be very nice. But it really works because no one else has those colors. So we created something that can't be confused with someone else. Again, very different color palette here. The purple, the teal, the apple green and the orange there. Another one, just different colors. Now we talk about brand names and taglines, and often this is a really hard conversation to have with people because they've, again, gotten to a certain point with this name, and they love this name, and it has an emotional connection to it, and I respect that. But sometimes that name is the thing that's really going to hurt you and not help you get to where you want to go. It's going to be something we're going to be constantly fighting against. So great names visually connect with images, connect images with emotions, okay? And what that means is, if I say the name, do I immediately think something positive about that company? Imagine if as soon as you said the name to someone, you're on an elevator, and you say, what company do you work for? You say, I work for Air Experts. Well, right away, there's a visual that goes in their minds when they think about that. And they think, well, it must be a pretty good company called Air Experts. They gotta know what they're doing. But if it was Anderson Heating and Air, well, I don't know if you're good. I don't know if you're good or bad. I mean, I'm gonna need other marketing to have people think something about Anderson, if that's the name or something like that. So I'd rather lead in with something that's positive from the get-go. I want them to think something about you, again, before you ring the doorbell, right? So a name which conjures up a graphic or a symbol is inherently much easier to remember. We have a client here, Jackrabbit, that we renamed, okay, right there. And when we renamed them, they had a name that, and I'm going to butcher it because I don't remember it, which proves my point, but it was like 1-800-AIR, right, or something like that? And that wasn't their phone number either. So it's very strange. And we said, we got to fix that. We got to think of something that's sticky. So you guys may not know what the branding for Jackrabbit looks like, but I think I have a slide of it. But you can imagine what it looks like. And imagine what it looks like when it gets to it, and then you see if that's kind of what you thought it was going to look like. And that's what I'm talking about, is it already conjures up an image. It already conjures up an idea. And yet, why we named them Jackrabbit, again, went to the idea of delivering something fast. I'm going to make their pain go away faster. Right? My air conditioning is broke. Like, I need you here, like, fast. And they're in Florida, so like when the shit doesn't work, they get all pissed off and they want their stuff fixed fast, right? So initial-based brands are the hardest to brand. And I know it's your name, usually, or there's a special connection to it. But it's really hard to brand something like TGS Heating and Air. It's hard. You're going to spend so much money trying to get people to remember that name, and it would be much better if we could just fix it and just start over almost. Last name brands, again, take years to associate with specific brand promise. If you're in the market for 25 years and your name's been on the side of your truck, I get the equity that's there. I don't know that it's a great idea to change it at that point. Okay, but if you're starting a company or you're 2 years into it and you're like, $2, $3, $4 million in revenue, you can still change it. And you're not going to lose momentum, you're going to gain momentum faster. Okay? So just be open to that as an idea that maybe a better name would help us get us to where. And again, think of names which instill an expected value or positive brand promise. Again, Cool Experts already sounds like a company that has expertise. It already sounds like a company that I can trust because they're called Cool Experts. If they were just called Anderson with that bear, yeah, I mean, it's still kind of, it'd be okay. But I don't know if they're good. I'm trying to, again, get in their heads and try to make them think something before they get there. This is another brand that we just created. They're in Minnesota, not Minnesota, they're in Wisconsin, where the cheese is. I guess I love cheese in Wisconsin. Are you from Wisconsin? Okay. Well, apparently there's cheese there. So, Over the Moon. Well, why call them Over the Moon? Like it sounds like that really shouldn't be the name of a heating and air conditioning company with a cow going over the moon, right? But what's the expected deliverable there? Well, when you're done receiving our services, you'll be so happy you're going to be over the moon. So I'm laying the foundation of what we expect that customer to feel after that experience. And they used to be called in-phase electric and air conditioning. Now, in-phase is an electrical term, right? And I'm not an electrician, but I'm sure it has something to do with current or something like that, right? But it doesn't necessarily lend itself to any specific visual. It's not very memorable. Vegas Strong, they're out here in Vegas. We just rebranded them. We rebranded them because there was a problem with the name Vegas Strong. It was associated with a killing that happened right over here, a shooting, where a lot of people died. And so we had to get away from that. We had to change that name. So we came up with Bumblebees. It's a fun brand. It's a fun name. 208%. There's Jackrabbit, right? So we just talked about that before. Again, look at the colors for Jackrabbit. Not exactly very common, like that salmon pink color, that teal color. But look at how fun that brand is. Driving down the road, I'm going to remember seeing that truck. And I'm going to expect something from Jackrabbit. Besides fast service, I just feel like it's a fun brand. I feel like my kids would probably point to it if I was driving, right? And you guys have experienced that. You guys know what that's like, right? Hop to It is another company that we rebranded, okay? They used to be called 24/7 Electrical Services, which sounds more like what they do than the actual name of a company. And you can see the truck wrap kind of exhibiting classic problems with overdone graphics and illegible things, and it's got the lightning bolts. And I never understood why we want to associate lightning bolts with electricity. Like, isn't that bad? Doesn't that mean that the electricity is not really working right? There's a lot of sparks going on, so I never quite got that, but we renamed them Hop to It, right? And it's a fun brand. It sounds, again, like they're going to be responsive, they're going to get there in time. Look at the color palette. Apple green and purple and white and a little bit of red. Very unique color palette in their space. Aerologic's another company that we renamed. They were called Bayside Refrigeration. And I bring that up because Bayside is a place in Queens, New York. And the problem was that no one outside of Bayside, Queens thought that they would service them. So if you have a name that's based on geography, that can sometimes come back to bite you as well. Because when you try to go into a different market, they don't think that you service that market. So consider that sometimes as well. If your naming is based on geography, sometimes that's a problem. Rocket Drains, again, going to get there really fast. Okay, there's the deliverable. There's the expectation of promise. Plums Up, another company that we named, and they started from scratch. They're in Canada. And they're like, Dan, like we're driving and people just stick their thumbs up at us. Like imagine if you were driving everywhere and people were just sticking their thumb up at you and remembering that name, right? And they've grown from like 0 to 2 million. And for plumbing only, you know, I know it's hard on plumbing only because the tickets aren't as high in like 2 years. So they've done really well with that name. Do It Right Plumbers. We're already saying what the deliverable is. Do It Right Plumbers, right? All Heart, another company here that we, they're not Vegas, they're in California, that we rebranded. They had initial-based brands. It's called DS Heating and Air. He said, Dan, nobody remembers that. Nobody knows what DS even stands for. And it was his name and his partner's name, was Dylan. And I said, what about if we come up with something that talks about how much you care about your company, right? And then we wrote the tagline for him. Comfort is only a heartbeat away. And that would all make sense why we're called All Heart. Do you think that this van is sitting on your neighbor's driveway? You're wondering if they're getting screwed by an overpriced contractor? It's really hard to think that All Heart is not an honest and ethical contractor, just by their name, just judging it by that alone. It is the Culpeper. And I just repeat Culpeper just to say that sometimes a last name brand, you try to leverage an aspect of that last name to try to make people remember. We had a company in California that we branded, their last name was Barker, so we used the dog. So I tried to connect Barker with dog, right? So at least I'm trying to make some kind of connection to make people remember it. Swanton is another one that we did. And here's Amanda's. Amanda's is like this. So Amanda used to be called PMA Mechanical. And her and I talked for a while about this. And she told me about where she wanted to go. And I said, Amanda, it's going to be hard to get people to think something positive about PMA Mechanical. So I actually came up with the name Grasshopper. And I wish there was a ton of research that I would say went into that, coming up with that name, and it was some stroke of just genius on my part. It was a little bit of luck. But when we found out more about what grasshoppers do and what they don't do, it became an amazing name and an amazing story that Amanda could leverage both within her culture and to the people that she was trying to sell to. So forward is a way of life. That's Amanda's tagline that she came up with after we named them Grasshopper. And you think about how powerful those words are. Forward is a way of life. And that's how she runs her company. That's how everyone on her team is expected to operate. They know what the values are. And everything that they're doing is moving forward. And the reason is grasshoppers can't go backwards. I wish I had known that when I came up with the name. I actually didn't know that. But it's such an amazing story that she can now tell. You think she could have come up with a culture based around the idea of PMA Mechanical? What would that culture even be? How would people even know what that meant? Right? So that was an example. And Amanda's growth, since we're at a 10x event, well, she 10x'd her business in a year. 1 year. Right? Amanda. It's amazing. She did that in 1 year, and I'm just like, wow, I just don't know what this is going to look like in 5 years. It's just going to be crazy. So, branding mistakes, how to avoid them. You know, the biggest challenges we see sometimes designing with the committee is challenging, right? If you're going to try to get your whole leadership team on board with getting a new logo, I can tell you by the time you finish with it, it's going to be watered down. It's going to be so much less effective. And I know that because when I work with owners one-on-one typically, that's when the best creative comes out of it, because they're typically a little bit less afraid. They're not afraid to be disruptive, as much as getting 10 people in a room and every one of them trying to give input on what they think this logo should look like. Okay? So just think about that. Designing for yourself instead of your target audience. Always think about who it is that you're selling to and why this brand needs to speak to them. Okay? Hiring the wrong people for this. Again, that's obvious, right? You hire someone who doesn't know how to do branding, how branding should live on all these different channels. It's not just the logo, it's not just the truck route, it's how it lives in all these things. And again, listening to people with little to no experience, a lot of them are very well-meaning, they just don't know how this is supposed to work, okay? If they're really good at Photoshop, it doesn't necessarily make them good at branding. And I'll give you an example of that. Last position that we just hired for another brand designer to join our team had over 200 resumes for people who said they knew how to do branding. And out of 200 resumes, there were 2 that were up to the level that we would expect to be under our branding. Okay, so it's not a skill set that a lot of people actually have. Okay? Again, I hear stuff that sometimes these people say also, and it just makes me sad on one level because it's such bad advice, and it makes me sad to think how much money gets wasted when people listen to some of this bad advice. So like, people say, oh, mascots don't work. You need to look like a world-class company. I don't know what the fuck a world-class company looks like, okay? But I can tell you, Mrs. Jones doesn't care about a world-class looking company. She wants to feel good about who is coming home. She doesn't want some generic corporate entity that's coming to her home. Okay, mascots don't work, right? Really? Because Matt Biddy's killing it with his mascot. How the hell is that happening? That's really strange. Or Dugan or Dream Team, or Jason Bueller with a big head. That shouldn't work, right? Here's another one where everyone said, oh my God, what is that? Narwhal. I don't think you guys know what a narwhal is, but that's a narwhal, right? It's this weird, like, whale. Mammal, I guess, right? Not a fish. And it's got a thing on its head that actually takes, like, temperature. It's, like, weird, right? So we thought, well, that would be kind of a cool mascot. And we put 2 vans out on the road and changed nothing else. We didn't launch a website. We didn't notify customers. We didn't do anything. Simply put 2 vans out on the road, and that's day 1. So mascots don't work? Well, how the hell do we get 10 times more traffic to our website one day after launching this mascot-based brand? Okay, so just think carefully about sort of who you're getting advice for. That's all. So again, no one wants to work for us. That's a big thing we hear. Recruitment is so hard. Well, is there another reason why maybe no one wants to work for you? Does it look like a company that I want to work for? So culture and branding work together to attract talent. Right? The culture of your company, create an internal environment that embodies your brand and your voice. Reinforce your core values. For Amanda, she's got her core values already inherent in her tagline. Her people know what the values of the company are and what's expected of them and what their mission is. Create an environment where potential employees will be proud to be part of. Are they proud to put on their uniform? Do you see them wearing their branded hats when they're off work? Are they proud to say they work for the company? Are they proud to get in a nicely lettered truck that looks really cool and is clean and presents professionally? So internally, branding and how that can affect. These are some wall wraps for spaces, right? So what do we do inside our offices to make the environment branded and make it more inviting? You can see this is a delivery company in New York City that we did the branding for, and everything matches. Everything looks very presentable, professional, uniforms. Okay, this is the break room for Seatown. You know, and they've got their tagline, service out of this world. Okay, you can see how this stuff looks. This is for blankets, heating, and air. Always growing, be kind, always do the right thing. So within the space, we're talking about values, we're talking about what's important for this company. This is actually my break room in my office that we did. Another company where we integrated the brand. And this is Victor's training room, right? His core values are there. It's visible. This is what we believe in. And of course, it's got to be more than just a pretty sign on the wall. We have to all act towards those values. We heard the guys yesterday talking about that. Connecting your brand to yours. Every single touch point that you put out on the street needs to connect your customers. Okay? It needs to be consistent. That's a lot of things that you see that's weird to me about branding is you have this amazing logo, this amazing truck route, this amazing brand, and then you have a generic website. Well, what the hell did we just do then? Why is the website generic? Changing the button colors on your website doesn't make it a custom website. It doesn't make it a branded website because our buttons match our logo. The voice on your website has to match. Okay? So digital marketing, web design, email marketing, all those things need to be consistent in how your brand is personified. When you print stuff, your brochures, your equipment stickers, all those things. Right? And again, don't forget to brand your office. Digital marketing. So I wanted to say the best test to see whether you have a generic website is to literally go on your own website, and every time it says your company name, replace it with your biggest competitor's name, and tell me if your website still makes sense. And if it does make sense, then what do you actually have? You have a generic website. You have a website that doesn't speak to anything that's unique and compelling about your company. So why would Mrs. Smith choose your company over the other one if your story or lack of story is the same, right? So these generic websites where all we're trying to do is bang in keywords and not actually talk to the people you're trying to sell to, they don't convert as well. It's the part that drives me crazy about digital marketing companies. They don't address the fact that we act like we're talking to a robot. We're not talking to a robot. We're talking to somebody who's got a problem. She wants to feel confident in using you, but yet we've given her no unique story about what is different about your company. Like I said, most SEO is backwards. We're driving traffic to generic sites, and when they don't convert, they tell you to spend more money. Well, we got to increase the budget. We got to spend more money. Well, maybe the foundation is messed up. Like maybe we should fix that first, and then those other things will work better. Okay? So connect in a way that your competitors can't. Most competitors don't even have any brand voice to speak of. What about you? Do you think Amanda's competitors have anything even remotely close to being able to say what their vision is compared to what she's got? There's no way. So leverage that. Leverage the fact that you have a unique story. You know, when we did the branding for Culpeper and did their website, we wrote content that dealt with the fact of why they had a pepper as their mascot, and we made it fun. You couldn't replace Culpeper with Smith Plumbing and have this website make any sense. It would be ridiculous. It wouldn't make any sense. Okay? Hop to it. You know, wear hair to help with your electrical needs, H-A-R-E. Okay? We tried to make it fun. We tried to make it human. We tried to give the voice of this company through words, not just visuals. Okay? So it's more than just that. So where do you go to get a new brand? Where to start? Certainly, listen, try to partner with a reputable design agency, of course. Okay? I always try to encourage people to not crowdsource their branding. And it's not because I'm trying to take everyone's work, it's because I've seen just so many horror stories from people that crowdsource their brand. And they go to 99 Designs or do a contest online. Problem is, a lot of that stuff is ripped off. And how do I know it's ripped off? Because I'm the one that they've ripped it off from. Okay? I've had probably about 40 of our brands ripped off from Fiverr or from 99 Designs and sold to guys who thought that they got an original piece of art. And then they put it on 10 different trucks and on their website, and then they got the cease and desist, and it became a really expensive lesson on why you should crowdsource your brand. Your most valuable asset, and we're going to try to go to the cheapest place possible to get it. It makes no sense to me. You know, someone said to me the other day, they said the most expensive logo you'll ever buy is the one you paid the least for. And if you think about that for a minute, that's one reason why. I don't say you got to use us. I would say don't crowdsource your logo if you can avoid it. Right? Trademark infringement is a really big problem. You think that person's going to research your market? They're going to understand how to integrate a voice into your brand. It's more than just a logo, right? You got to think of it. It's more than just a pretty logo. What is the pretty truck route? It's a culture that you're building. Okay. And again, a lot of times they don't understand how that brand needs to function in other environments. Okay. And don't use clip art. Okay. Clip art you can't trademark. That literally means if you use clip art in your logo, I can start a company in your market can use the exact same piece of clip art, and there isn't anything you can do about it. One of the biggest companies in Chicago, their logo is clip art. And it blows my mind. It's like, really? It's clip art. Like, I can use the same exact clip art, and there's literally no protection that you can ever get with a clip art based logo. So, I don't know how we're doing on time. We're actually over time, so I don't know if we have time to talk to Jason. Jason, I mean, listen, do you want to just say anything about the experience, just about what you've seen firsthand, about how the brand has changed your life, so to speak?
I would just say that if you think that you have a bad brand, or you think you could be better,
don't be scared. Because I went through this process where my instincts told me that we needed to make a change, and I waited like years to do it. And once we made the change, even though it was stressful, it just made this unbelievable difference for our business, for recruiting people, for just going to market in general. And people search Bueller Air; they don't search AC repair in our market. We get hundreds and hundreds of visits a month, sometimes thousands of visits a month, where people just search our business. And that's what he's talking about when he says winning the battle on the streets. And I just think it's really powerful. I've lived it, and I certainly think that if somebody's on the fence about it, they should consider it. Reach out to me, and he'll be happy to tell you how bad your brand sucks.
Yeah, the other thing too that we found out with Jason as well is just the amount of revenue that was derived from his vehicles by themselves. And so we dove into some data. We're still sorting through it, but the way it looks right now, it's got 18 trucks on the road. So a total cost of about, let's just say $75,000, $80,000 to wrap 18 trucks on the road. Divide that by 5 years, because that's the life expectancy of a truck wrap roughly. And you're talking about maybe $18,000, $20,000 a year to brand 18 trucks, and the revenue derived from 18 trucks is over $1 million. So think about that, right? If I told you spend $18,000 and you'll get $1 million in revenue, it'd be crazy to think, I'm not going to spend that money, right? That doesn't make any sense. And that's not even counting the people who saw the vehicle and filled out a contact form. It's only talking about the CSRs taking that phone call and logging it and assigning it a lead source of the truck. So $1 million of revenue on $18,000 spend, it's crazy numbers. And that's why I know disruption works. That's why I know you can do so well for people that...
If you want to 10x your marketing spend, get a brand that can be 10x.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Yeah. So we got like a few minutes. If anybody has any questions for me, yep.
All right, so you already have a couple of companies in my marketplace. How, as KickCharge, can you sit there and, I guess, make sure that you are acting as a fiduciary for each and every company within the marketplace when you have several companies already within the marketplace?
So, yeah, it's a great question, right? So how do you make sure that we can still be disruptive in a market that maybe we've put other brands out into that space, right? And the same thing holds true, though, in terms of strategy. So if I know that I've done a brand in your market or two brands, whatever the number is, that's going to be on the same board that we're using to derive strategies that are different. So if I know that we've done a retro-based mascot that's orange and blue in your market, well, I'm not going to put another retro-based mascot in your market and dilute their ROI and then dilute your ROI at the same time. That would be dumb, right? We always want to do something that is still unique in any given market. So you have to still look at what's out there. And if it's something we did, then yeah, it's probably performing well, but I'm going to have to come up with another way to be different in your market, to be disruptive while respecting, obviously, someone that's already out there. Because, again, I don't want to dilute any ROI for anybody. Any other questions? Yeah.
What's the largest company that you've changed the name on, based on like brand name?
I think about 8 to 10 million. I think we've done it. Again, people get like really worried about it. It's a good worry. Like you should be worried about it. Okay, but if it's rolled out in the right manner, we've yet, like we'll do about 25 renamings this year. Most of them will be under 10 million. But for anyone that we've done it for, we've never seen a loss of revenue subsequent to that. And I think it's the way in which they're rolled out has to be done very strategically. You have to make sure that every customer knows why the change is happening, what it means for them, okay? And you have to spin it in a way that's positive. Like the first time we did it, like years ago, we didn't realize that like things like warranties might be a question mark, right? Well, you just changed the name, but last year you put in a 5-year warranty on my system. Like you still gotta honor that. So like we learned from that experience, and again, now when we send out the initial communications about the change, that is mentioned, that is talked about. And we say, you know, of course, all your warranties will be honored, and it's the same ownership, things like that. So as long as it's rolled out in a way, we've yet to do it and have a client experience revenue loss afterwards. So, yeah, we did. Yep. I'm sorry?
We just rebranded with you. We had our name for 18 years. The experience has been amazing. And with the logo that you guys provided, we now find that people wave at us as we're driving by. So next year, because we just finished just a couple of weeks ago, we'll let you know the results. But right now, everything seems very positive.
Great. Actually, I'll pay you later.
Anybody else? We got time for one more question. Right there.
Hey Dan, so my question is, as you acquire additional companies in overlapping marketplaces, do you recommend sticking with the original branding if those companies have, 100-year business presence in that area, co-branding with other unique brands you already have, or do you recommend just starting fresh and rebranding them all with the same uniform brand?
Say the first part again.
So I'll give you the specifics of our situation. There's 6 different companies that are all geographically very close right now and all maintain independent branding because most of them have been in business for almost 100 years by themselves. But we've debated, is it better to bring them all together? Do you
Under what name?
Yeah, I'm just curious what your thoughts are, or what's the most effective and best way to do it.
So sometimes when you think about that, now you've got 6 marketing campaigns that are happening concurrently with one another. Okay, so it's 6 ad spends, and 6 websites, and 6 different wraps.
That's exactly how we do it.
Yeah. So I think, again, rolling them under one umbrella, I think in the long run, I think you would save more money. But, I have to know a little bit more about the history, the heritage, and how strong and the size of some of the other brands. But if you're marketing them all independently, it's a handful. It has to be to manage. Then you got call centers, you got different phone numbers, it's got to be logistically very challenging to do it that way.
Yeah, it's a handful. It's nice when they need 3 bids.
So the ethics are a little questionable there, but. Anybody else, any other questions? All right, sweet. Well, listen, thank you so much for listening to me talk about my favorite thing in the world. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. And Victor and the team here, just thank you so much for having me here. I'm just so blessed to be here and to work in the trades. I can't think of a better job that I have than to be able to help change the lives of people like you. And I'm so blessed to be part of this community with you all and these all such amazing entrepreneurs. So thank you so much for allowing me to participate in that.
Can we try one more time? Get up! Thank you. Amazing. All right, we're going to take a break right now before we come back. All right, we're going to take a 10-minute break, everybody. So go ahead and use the restroom, grab a refreshment. We'll see you all back in 10 minutes, which puts us at 10:50. We're going to kick this thing off.